Beth Cluth here from Ink Art by Beth Cluth, and today we're talking about alcohol ink and stencils. I've been working with alcohol ink and stencils for many years, but recently just posted some photos and got a lot of questions, a lot of great reaction and feedback, but a lot of questions about the process. And it's so easy, but I thought I'd do a quick video and just show you how I do it. Other people may use a different technique or process. This is one of the pieces that I did, and this is a stencil that I got. It was part of a set on Amazon, and I'll put the link to that set in the description of the video if you're interested. It comes with some other cool ones as well. And I did this on white Yupo paper. You have to work on a synthetic paper, very smooth synthetic surface. This is one that I did on graphics, craft plastic, but it was their new, they have a gray color, and so it just subdues the colors a little bit, but also I used darker inks on this piece than I did on this one. And I must have used a little bit more because a little bit more bled underneath the stencil, but it's still beautiful. I mean, that's what I like, is that I'm not looking for perfection, that each hole of the stencil is filled in perfectly. Then you might as well just, like, I don't know, outline it and paint it in. I like the sort of organic mess that happens. So another one that I did recently was this little like a Polynesian flower kind of thing, and that was this stencil. This one, I don't know where I got it. Because I probably 500 stencils. I have so many stencils. But one thing with this one, the stencil material is so thin in places, certain places, in all places, obviously much thinner plastic than this one has. Thicker plastic, it's a little more durable. I have a couple of these that got bent, and so if your stencil gets bent or broken, I don't know if you can see it, but it just sort of sticks up. If it's not going to lay flat against the surface, then you're not going to get detail. So when you're using stencils and when you're cleaning stencils, you have to be really, really careful not to, even this little edge here, if you can see, got bent a little bit. So that's going to keep this from laying real flat on the surface. We're not gluing these onto the surface. Once you start adding the inks, there's a surface tension that sort of keeps it in place. I do tape it just to make sure it doesn't move, because a lot of times you have to set it aside for a while. So I'm going to do a couple. I'm going to do this one, and then I'm also going to show a couple smaller stencils that I have. This little flower, and I'm not even going to clean this one before I use it. I'm just going to do it because there isn't a whole lot of ink left on it. And then this is sort of like a little seed pod kind of one. This is a Stencil Girl stencil. So I love their stencil, stencilgirl.com. Joggles.com has great stencils. I have gotten a couple from Ulta New. And then, I mean, I just get them from, I've gotten them from rummage sales. I've gotten them from friends. They weren't necessarily in a protective thing, so I don't know where they're from. But any plastic or mylar or homemade stencil, you can make your own stencils out of Yupo or plastic. Anything is going to work. You just want to make sure it lays flat. So I'm going to be working on a small piece of Yupo for this one. For this one, I also like to work on clayboard. So it's just this happens to be four pieces. They're very thin, 1/8 inch, I think, each, and this is 5 by 5. Also, if you get the ultra smooth gesso board, that's really nice because it's, again, it has to be super smooth. If it has texture, some gesso boards have texture, that's not going to work because the stencil won't stay flat. Also, canvas doesn't work well because the stencil won't stay flat. And that's even if you try to prep the surface in some way. I just have not found that to work very well at all. So I'm just going to show, well, here, we'll do this one really quick. This is such a quick process. So I had a lot of people say, this should be a workshop. And I'm telling you, it takes like less than 5 minutes to fill in the stencil. And then you have to wait anywhere from 30, 45 to 90 minutes for it to dry. Speeding that up with a blow dryer really does not help. In fact, sometimes it can blow the stencil up while it's still wet underneath. And then you don't get the definition. So the ink within the holes is going to dry pretty quickly. The ink is going to go underneath the stencil. Even on this one, there's all the ink went underneath the stencil. Sometimes it sticks really well. Sometimes it doesn't. There's really no way to, I don't know, there's no way to like predict what's going to happen. But it is going to go underneath, and that's fine. It's because the edges of these openings are going to create the definition. But what I am going to do is, if I can find some tape, I might not even have any tape handy. I can just even use a little Post-it note. I don't care. I just want to stick this down just so it doesn't slide around. But again, we're not adhering the stencil to the surface of the paper, and you want to be on a surface that's nice and flat. And then you just start dripping, literally. And sometimes I squirt. You can just go and then add a little of that same color somewhere else. You can see how it goes underneath the stencil. Use some this. It's, for me, it's no rhyme or reason. It's just filling in where you can. You can get a little bit more specific, and especially at the end when there's just a few little white spots, then you're going to want to get a little more specific to that color. I try to be cognizant of not putting too much of a color over top of another color necessarily. Especially because then you're just going to have mud. You're just going to have brown all over the place. Let me try some red. And also where I'm using red next to green, I want to make sure that they're not mixing too much because that's also going to create a little bit of mud. And it's just sort of like, you know, where do you want to have a little color? Where do you want to have a little fun? I'll put some brighter yellow in here. And I mean, if some of this goes over the top, like green and yellow go well together. So again, if some of that yellow goes on top of the green, that's okay. And then one thing you're going to see happen right away is that it's going to pool into these little dark puddles in the center of the openings. So what you want to do is before it dries, so you have to do this a couple times, you're going to blow, and it pushes that color, that little puddle, that dark puddle, it pushes that out. I'm not sure if you could actually see that happen, but wherever there were dark puddles, if you just blow that out, now the color has been pushed out. And I'm just going to continue. And here's where then I can get a little bit more. That's almost the same color. Here's those dark puddles starting again. If you can see that, the dark little dots in the center. I'm sure that looked great on camera, me blowing on that. All right, let's get some, I'm going to get a little bit of a darker green in here, just for a little, it's nice to have really light areas and really dark areas. Contrast is, now you can tell I'm just being more specific, actually just putting the tip of the bottle like right into each little opening. I'm going to use my blower to blow out these puddles because they come up quick, and I think you can sort of see that ink move around within the little hole. All right, what does it need? A little dark blue here. And you can also leave some white spots. Every little single white area does not have to be filled in. That's completely up to you. Again, especially down here, I can see those black puddles forming in the center of those openings, and I want to get those blown out. And not that they're, I mean, sometimes, you know, having some here or there, it's really pretty. But if it's in the center of every single opening, I don't know, I don't necessarily like the look of that. All right, so now I'm just taking a light color and filling in where I still had white spots. And as you can see, that ink is way underneath the stencil. Do 2 more here. Keep missing. Think. All right. Okay, one little last air blow to. And I'll tell you, this part, blowing out those puddles, helps to create more definition around the outside of each little thing. Instead of having just a big puddle in the center, it pushes that out and it creates more definition in each of this. I'll call them cells, but it's, you know, each of the stencil openings. All right, so now what we have to do is we have to let this sit. The ink inside of here is going to dry very quickly, but if you look, the ink under here, you can just like tap the edge here or tap anywhere right in the middle. That moves around. That ink underneath there is going to stay wet. Blow drying it really isn't going to help. It really needs to just sort of, somehow it does start to dry, maybe as it moves closer to the edge of these openings. I don't exactly know the science, but what I'm going to do is just set that aside. Over here, you want to put it on a flat surface. All right, and now I'm going to do one. I'm going to do this little I don't know what, seed pod. It looks like seed pods. And I'm just going to put, again, I would put tape, like masking tape or washi tape. I just don't know where any of my tapes are today. So I'll just put Post-it notes. And that's, again, just to keep it from moving around. In this one, because it is seed pods, I'm going to sort of be a little bit more intentional about where I'm putting the color. So like around this outer part of the seed pod, I'm just tapping with that outer edge. And I mean, it's gonna go everywhere. You really can't help it. Do that. Again, I'm gonna blow that out a little bit. Again, you can blow just with your mouth or with the blower. But you can see how it pushed that ink out to the outer edge. All right, and then I'm going to add a little, this is going to be like a little more naturalistic. Put some of this in the middle of each of my seed pods. And again, not perfect, doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be perfect. might just add a different green and a different, or maybe a yellow. Yellow isn't very much different than the, again, puddles of that dark. By blowing that out, I get a little bit more of a design too with the inks within the cells. Makes them blend a little bit more. I sort of like how this stayed. You know, I could keep that like that, or I could put something like really dark in there. Now that I just did that, I'm gonna do. Ooh. If you wanted to, you could take a brush and just push that around a little bit. I took all my brushes with me on a retreat recently, and we don't have any. So, or you could fill it in with your finger. Create a little texture. Go. This will be interesting because these are darker colors. The thing is, you don't know how it's going to turn out until the very end. That's the surprise. So I'll just sort of move that around a little bit more. All right, so that's very dark. We will see. We will see what happens. Okay, I'm going to put that aside. And now I think I'm going to try one on the clay board. I think I have a small little clay board here. This is too big, but I'm going to just try to put it on there anyway, sort of coming off of the corner. And because when I lay that flat, this one I won't be able to tape unless I tape it from the back. I might be able to do that. Or post-it note it from the back. I don't know if this is going to work. But you know what, just to keep it, I don't know if this is really going to help or not. Yeah, it's not. It's just sort of resting on there. That's okay. We'll see what happens. Okay, so for this one, I think I'll do a really light green center. I'm using similar colors to what were on there before. Maybe a little bit different. And again, once you start tapping that ink, your stencil really does sort of like just get stuck to the surface just from the surface tension. This is a dark one. That's a dark color. If I'm going to use that dark of a color, I'm going to try to break it up with something a little lighter and brighter in between. That's very light, but I think it sort of needs that. Maybe a little orange. Very messy. you know, and if you get a little bit too much on there, feel free to just sort of soak up some with a little bit of a paper towel. And I don't want to have those big puddles in the center. I'm going to blow that out. And I'm a little nervous about putting this butterscotch right next to the purple because that can make mud a little bit, but you know what? You just experiment and do what you have to do. Because this is such a big opening, you could also, you know, you could take a brush and you could do little dots. Or I'm gonna spray this. It was very wet, so I don't think those are gonna stay very well. Oh, maybe they will. I just did this little spray of alcohol. You can also do that on, let's say, this one, which is drying. If I wanted to just ooh, I like the little speckles on there. And that's just, I would do that before I take the stencil off. Okay, so we have 3 of them that we're just going to let sit and dry. I'm gonna, something's not, need more, a little more pink, I think. A little more pink. There we go. Yeah, a lot of my speckles sort of just spread out and I lost them. But now that this is drier, the drier that is, the more that those little speckles might stay. Ooh, woo, overkill. But we will see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to let these dry, and for probably at least 30 minutes, I'll pop in. It probably will be an hour. And some of this, well, that's already soaked in. We'll come back and check in about an hour and see if we can take those stencils off. Again, I wouldn't recommend trying to use a blow dryer because it will just, it could blow the stencil right off. If you take the stencil off while there's still a lot of liquid underneath, then you'll lose all your definition. So it really is a patient waiting game. Okay, see you in a bit. Okay, before I let those dry, I'm going to try another experiment. This is another piece of the clay board, just because I had it handy. This was my old stencil that was dirty, and it definitely has more ink on one side than the other, so I'm going to put the dirtier side down. The thing is, it's not really... Let me see. I might have to do this on... I might have to do this. Oh, it's not really staying down on the U-Po either. It has to be this way. I think this whole stencil is actually a little bit compromised with all the little bends and things in it. Let's see if I can find one. Okay, this will work. So this is another dirty stencil. It's waves. I don't have the actual piece that was made from this, but this I think is a stencil girl. Nope, this is from joggles.com. But what I'm going to do is find the side that has more ink on it. I think that's this side. I'm going to put that side down. I'm going to try a little experiment. And then what I'm going to do is just drip I'm just going to drip, I don't want to pick exactly what one of these colors is, but I think this is a little bit different than any of the colors that were used on here. Okay, so now I'm just going to drip just this color, one color, because I'm hoping that the other colors that were on here, on the stencil itself, it's going to reactivate those. And I did find a little brush, so I can just push that around a little bit, or I can find another, this is another lighter color, aqua. I'll stick that. I just want to see what happens with these, can't even see the edge of my paper. Because what's going to happen, well, I know it's going to reactivate the ink that's on the stencil. I'm going to blow this around a little bit, just so it pushes the, I want to make sure that this stencil is really, it is down pretty good. Ooh, I'm really starting to see all of these little, the little puddles, but for some reason, in this instance, I really like it. So I think I'm just going to leave them be and not blow them out anymore. I don't know why that is. Usually when you blow it, you get rid of the little puddles. Pull some out. It's also really, really wet. Oops. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to leave whatever puddles form, I'm just going to leave those be. But that'll be an experiment just to see. I didn't really add any new color. I just used, this is a very light patina, and this is a very light, where's the other one? This aqua color. Hoping that those darker greens and blues that were left on the stencil will sort of mix in. We'll see what happens. All right, we will see you in a bit. Okay, it's been about an hour and a half. I checked it about an hour and really wasn't ready. But you can, the liquid is not moving anymore underneath. So I'm going to pick this up. And sometimes there will just be a few little areas that might still be wet. And so that they don't spread out and like completely destroy your design, you want to just either blow on it right away or use this air blower as soon as you take the stencil off. So that looks really cool. Like that. Okay, so I'm going to look at this one that we did on the clay board. And I noticed that I did use very dark colors. So you might want to just use lighter colors. Also, clay board is more absorbent. So those colors are really going to stick in there. Carefully take your stencil off. Ooh, it's a different look, but it's a little darker on screen than it is in person, but it's really fun. And I could see going in with like a white Posca pen. You could do the outlines, or you can just do a couple dots here and there, or some gold. I think I might just do maybe some dots or something in the center of that flower, but that's very fun. And then we'll look at our little seed pods. And this again is on the Yupo paper. Pick that up. Ooh, it's sort of monochromatic, but sort of cool looking. I really do like the speckles from the spray alcohol on there. What I might do is cut out, because you could take a scissors and then cut off this little outer edge, and I could even cut out the shape of it so that it's not perfectly square. If I did this one again, I do like the green and the gold, but I probably wouldn't do a dark background. So this is what's fun, is that you can just, you reuse these over and over again with different colors, different techniques, that kind of thing. Okay, we'll look at the big rays. And if I push underneath here, I think you'll be able to see how that it's moving. So that is still wet underneath there. The bigger areas of plastic that you have, you're going to have, you know, I could let this go another hour, but I don't think it's ever going to be completely dry under there, just because it can't evaporate underneath the plastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this handy, and I'm just going to keep blowing as I pick up the stencil. And they can get a little sticky. It's not moving too much. Woo, that is fun. So here I do have a lot of really great outlines, but I do have some of those where the ink pooled in those dark little puddles, but it's not on every single one. It's like one of them out here, and then there's a couple in the middle here. But you can see that even though the ink gets underneath the stencil, there's still plenty of contrast between the background and then the cells. That's super, super fun. So, which brings me to the bad part of this project is the cleanup. So you can reuse the stencils like I did with the flower without cleaning it first. But if you do want to use some different colors, or you don't want this to reactivate, then you are going to really need to clean the stencil. And really what you need to do is soak it. And you need to soak it in alcohol. So years and years ago, I did do a couple of stencil workshops on ceramic tile. And we had a big bin, or a big plastic container, that we soaked the stencils in when we were done. It's just an overwhelming scent. It is not healthy to have that much. And so that's why I don't think this is going to be a good option for me to do as a workshop. But if you're just doing it at home. So here's a container that I had used to clean some other stencils. And I popped a window open because this is very, very stinky. But what you really need to do is put this in alcohol, and then I usually just pour more alcohol on top. I'm just going to pull this out for a second. And the best is, I think, just swishing it back and forth over the top of the stencil is what really gets rid of the what's stuck. You can use a paper towel, but be very gentle, because if you're not gentle, you're going to either bend or rip the stencil, and then it really can't be used for this process again. So I'll put that over. And just going back and forth and back and forth. I'm going to lay it on something absorbent. This is a puppy pad. And then I'm going to take some, whoo, that scent is strong. Take this. I'm just going to sort of wipe it off. It may get stained. You know, I might not get all the color out, but the majority of the ink is off of there. And then I can let this dry and use it again. For your bigger stencils, you're going to have to let it soak in like sort of sections, which again is just going to take stick it in there. You're going to go through a lot of alcohol. This up. And again, I think it's just the sort of swishing it back and forth over the top of the stencil works well. You gotta flip it around. Get that side. Again, just sort of a little soft wipe with a paper towel. And again, if the whole thing does not get completely clean, that's okay. Just, it's more important to be gentle with it. and to not get too asphyxiated, I put this down. I put that down, and I'm going to put something over the top of it so I don't have to smell that scent. Make sure you have the windows open, or better yet, probably do this outside if you can. I'll lightly wipe that off. And then there are going to be areas where it just gets really sticky and it's hard to clean that, and then I just leave it. You know, you can use that. That's pretty clean to use for a new color combo. And that's really all there is to it. I hope this was helpful, and I hope you have fun playing with different stencils you might have or that you want to purchase. And if you want to subscribe to this YouTube channel, I'm going to be doing more experiments with different kinds of ink and different techniques, all coming up in the next few months. And I'd love to have you to try them out with me. So again, thanks for joining me, and I will see you next time. Bye.